Got the,
What?
got their computer.
I didn't. I apologize. Yeah.
So we'll see if it works faster. All right. It's,
I don't know. That looks pretty good to me.
it's like we're delayed still.
Yeah, we'll delay.
All right. So we are live on Facebook. And we are here in the O'Gorman gym. You can hear some basketball bouncing. Wrapping up the boys' practice, and then the girls are actually having a welcome home celebration for their state championship that they were part of out in Rapid City. So I'll be heading over there, but joined by Mick Garry again today. We've taken a couple of weeks off, but back at it. Just wanted to touch base, and then next week we're going to be at Bosses in T. Thank him for Jeremy for being our sponsor. And if anybody else wants to be a sponsor, we'll always take sponsorships, right? And but we'll be in T next week, and we missed a couple of weeks. We had some weather. I was out of town, things like that. But happy to be back. And what you been up to, Nick?
Let's see here. Boy, spent this last weekend very quietly. I gave up beer for Lent. So I mean, how much? What can you do?
Are you counting down the days? Is it are
Next-
you at that point?
I
Yeah,
think it's going to progressively get easier.
absolutely. I know some people that have done that. It's pretty, maybe for the non-Catholics out there. Could you explain why we give up things for Lent for Catholic?
Well, it gives you. I mean, there are a lot of things you can do, and you can be very proactive. You can say, well, I'm going to do this and this and this, which I haven't done. And those things make a lot of sense too. But there's a little bit of self-denial, which I think it centers you maybe a little bit, and it gives you a chance to assess priorities in life.
Yep.
And without using theological terms, because I would mess them up.
Yeah.
But essentially that's what Lent is for me anyway, at least this year.
Yeah.
It's about just maybe reasserting or looking at and assessing priorities and what's really important, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, in a sense, it's you're taking something away from yourself that maybe gives you joy, or that you enjoy, whether it's taking away alcohol, certain foods, candies, not going to certain places, fast food restaurants. And it seems sometimes it seems kind of frivolous, but in faith it's a pretty big step to give up something for what you believe in.
Absolutely, and it does. It centers you, and it gives you an opportunity to think about why you're here, and what you're doing.
Awesome. Well, good luck with that.
You say that like you're not quite sure. Now you're not sure I'm going to be able.
Well, I mean, it's not that I think you can't do it. It's just in your life, a bar and having a beer is kind of your your social network. Maybe even some work things. We a lot of times we'll meet at a bar and do this. Shenanigans has been great to us.
Yep.
Gateway, all these places, Bosses, and it's just let's have a beer and a pizza, and
Yes.
now it's a water for when is Lent end? It ends middle of April this year, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
I think it's been fine so far.
I think it's awesome.
You go home though, you watch like an old episode of Gunsmoke, and man, okay, we accomplished something today. Let's go to the Long Branch, and so that part of it I think we wrestle with.
That's awesome. For those that don't know, I've been a Catholic officially for only about 3 or 4 years. But I'm married a Catholic. I've been to the Catholic Church. I'm just not strong enough to give things up, I guess, because the joke I always make is, and it's probably not very funny, but it gets me by, I guess. I gave up giving up things for Lent.
Okay.
That's what I do.
All right. Well, you're a convert though. I mean, you.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't born into it. I came to it.
Yeah.
So,
You can say that being Catholic in itself is kind of like,
I'm still figuring it out.
yes. There you go.
So, one thing I want to mention, we are like I said, we are at O'Gorman's school, and behind us, you can see the wall of champions. And no disrespect to any other school out there, because they've all got their own things.
Mhm.
And, but I always think that it is very impressive. Just like any school you go to, you go to some small schools and see the banners and stuff. I just think those are really special that, when alumni come back and they can say, well, I remember that team, or I was on that team. And
It's funny when I go in here now, and it's not a regular thing like it used to be, but I think back to 1991 when I would have, or 1990, the first time I would have been in here, and how many more there are since, in those 30 years. So
yeah. And so this weekend was the girls' state tournament. And like we said, O'Gorman won the girls. But then St. Thomas More won the A's, and then Bybrook Hurley had a great run, 8 seed, winning the Class B, and a lot of close games. I watched a lot on TV,
Mhm.
and it was just fun to watch. A lot of different teams in the tournament this year, maybe, and a lot of different ones winning, so to speak. But then O'Gorman and St. Thomas More. St. Thomas More is, in the last 10 years, has won a lot. But
Yes.
like Bybrook Hurley's been in it before, but for them to get another championship, or I don't even know when their last one was for sure, but they've been very, very good and have an 8 seed. You don't very often see the 8 seed.
No, I
win
wonder
state
if
tournament.
you looked at history, how many times it's been done. I have no idea, but man, I bet it's not very often.
So, congratulations to all those teams. And, this week, got the boys coming up, and the double A's are here in Sioux Falls. A's are out in Rapid, and the B's are in Aberdeen, kind of spread out. But again, it's awesome in South Dakota that we get to watch all those teams on TV. There's nothing like going to a game, but to have the ability to watch those games on TV is pretty cool.
Well, absolutely. And it's in its own way, it's promoting the sport, and it's definitely promoting the kids, which is the coolest part.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the one thing. A lot of the announcers do a really good job. Our friend Mike Henriksen,
Yeah.
He was at the A's in Brookings, and did a great job. Just, teaching us, or explaining some things about different things from, I heard stories about when girls basketball started, and
Mhm.
stories that he told about that, and how far we've come since those days. The sayings on the Native American teams, what they meant, because they're in Lakota,
Uh-huh.
and really cool things. I think one of the teams, the back of their shirts, and I'm going to get this wrong, but it was something to the effect that our grandmothers were warriors, so we can be warriors on the court.
Mhm.
Something that,
Okay. All right.
showing sign of respect for their elders, and being proud of, how their grandparents and elders have been there for them, and paved the way for them to be on the court. I thought that was pretty cool.
State tournaments are a great vehicle for welcoming diversity and showing, I think, showcasing the youth and diversity. And there's a lot going on there with that. It's very constructive, very positive.
Absolutely. And then, like I said, this weekend we got the boys state tournament, and we got teams coming from Sioux Falls. We got teams from Rapid, going to all the tournaments and things like that. The Class A's you got the Dakota Valleys, and the Sioux Falls Christians, and the St. Thomas Moors, the ones that are there a lot.
Mhm.
And it's going to be a fun tournament. And Class B is that's always a great event for not only the teams in it, but Class B does a great job of those small towns in South Dakota gravitate towards that tournament. And, it's kind of like the state wrestling tournament, so to speak, when everybody just kind of takes it, that's their vacation. They go to the state wrestling tournament or they go to state B's, and that's a special event, the state B's.
You definitely see it with it. I mean, it's inverse to it, the smaller the school, the bigger a deal it is, and the higher percentage of people who are in any way affiliated with that school or that community are gonna be there, and they're gonna be riled up. And it's a cool part of it, and I don't know, this is not an opinion that means anything to anyone, but I'd be sort of bummed if Aberdeen didn't continue to have state tournaments, because over the years I recognized the effort that community put into that event. And I mean, they haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
But they execute that in a great way, and they have for a long time.
Yep. And the kids and the fans and the communities love to go there. And, like you said, they haven't done anything wrong. If it ever moves somewhere, it's not because Aberdeen put on a great show.
That was my
roll out the red carpet.
Exactly.
And things like that. And AA is in the Denny. It's gonna be, obviously it's a beautiful building. Thursday night, O'Gorman plays Lincoln at 6 o'clock, and then Washington plays Jefferson right after that. So I'm expecting a big crowd, in Sioux Falls, 4 Sioux Falls teams playing. That should be a fun environment, I would think.
Absolutely. Yeah. It should be a great night of basketball in this town. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that, and then I think as the weekend goes on, there's gonna be some the double A's, especially. There's any team can win that. Any of the 8 teams.
You hear that?
any of the 8 teams can win it, and it's just gonna be a lot of fun games, a lot of close games. There's so much talent in all classes. And in at double A, they're not just basketball players, but just talented athletes that are out there, competing and just really working their tails off. It's amazing how hard these kids work nowadays.
Yeah, no, and I think when they want to malign whatever the most, the high school generation, whatever you label them now versus 10 years ago or whatever, it's always going to be how much tougher they were back in the day. And it's like, maybe once in a while, but if you look at how hard these kids work to get into that top 8 of a varsity basketball team in this town, and there's no comparison into what it would have been like 50 years ago when some folks would be pointing at how tough they are versus. I mean, that's a can of snakes that there's no reason to get into here, but it's a point that it's like when I hear that whoever is out there now, they are maligned because things are different and cell phones and all this stuff. It's like that's might be true in some instances, but as far as the amount of time that these kids put into becoming good at basketball it's way off. That criticism is way off.
Yeah, absolutely. And the opportunities these kids have not only in basketball but other things to have kids stick it out, because there's so many opportunities for kids to do other things than play basketball. I think it's a testament to the kids that, like you said, any generation could go back and say, well, we were better here, we were better there. But I hope everybody just takes a moment to appreciate what those 3 classes are doing at each of their respective tournaments this weekend, and just really praise and enjoy those kids for their accomplishments, because they have worked hard, and it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of pressure on those kids to perform at certain schools. And so just happy for all those kids to go out and hopefully have a great tournament, have a great experience, win or lose. Somebody's going to get 8th place. Doesn't mean they had a bad year. They just didn't win a couple games.
Right.
Absolutely. Enjoy the experience.
I'm all in on that.
So, want to talk about the Summit League went on last week, and I don't know if you got to any games or you watched any on TV, but obviously great crowds out at the Denny as always, and a lot of good games, kind of went the way it was kind of expected to.
Mhm.
In the women's, let's start with the women's, and then we got down to the state U matchup.
Yeah.
Two really, really good teams. And, we're talking about the physical play of high school. And that's what happened in that championship game. It was physical. And even the announcer saying it was kind of ugly, but, after the game, the coaches and the players on both sides says it wasn't ugly. It was just a competitive defensive battle. Which
Where they let them play a little bit, which is very good idea in those situations. Those two teams, well coached, both very good teams going into the year and have sustained that the whole way through and extremely familiar with each other. And so I think it'd have been a surprising if it hadn't been the type of game that it ended up being.
yeah. And it happened that USD came in the 2 seed. They tied, but then I think the net or whatever the ranking is,
Yeah, it was just
SDSU got the 1 seed. But it was interesting because at that point, even the national announcers were saying they thought USD would be in, win or lose, but state had to win.
yeah, and you wonder what the math is on
Yeah,
that. I was very surprised that they didn't get in there, and it was it's un, unfortunate, and I think just a poor decision. I mean, those two teams should be in there.
Absolutely. And I think everybody in the country that follows women's basketball, all the coaches in the Power Fives, I think they're thanking, their lucky stars that South Dakota State isn't in there because they know how good the Jackrabbits.
Yeah, let's say they go in there as a 13 seed or a 12 seed. There's a bunch of 4 and 5 seeds that are very grateful that they don't have. None of them are going to have to deal with the Jackrabbits.
Yeah. So, but the Coyotes on the women's side, they get a 10 seed, and obviously there are people that think there should have been higher or lower, but I think it's they're there.
Yeah,
And they've got a chance to win a game. Obviously they're the underdogs, but I look forward to watching them play on Friday.
I think, and without being able to back this up with specifics about this particular game, the seeding is one thing, but I think a lot of times it's the matchup. And I can't tell you at all how they match up with Ole Miss this second. I just glanced at their their season box score, their stats, and they play a lot of people. They don't shoot very well, and the turnover ratio is pretty intense. They get after it.
But it probably fits into that mold of a team that's very athletic, understands that you can get up and you play a lot of people, you can get up and guard people. Fouls aren't, they don't worry about fouling people out, and that could cause some trouble with a USD team. But USD is a veteran team, which I think will help them some with that. But sometimes when you're going up against athletes, it's just tough to
right.
That speed of the game is hard to fathom.
And you look at and I don't know how this works into it exactly, because I haven't talked to anyone yet who knows anything about that game. But Ole Miss lost 3 times to South Carolina. Okay, that's one thing, and that's a common game. And USD played South Carolina very early in the I don't know if it was the second game here in town, and I mean it didn't go very well that day.
No.
But most teams that played South Carolina doesn't go very well, and it didn't go very well for Ole Miss. I think the last time they played, it was more of a game, maybe a 10-point game in their tournament. But but you're going to a matchup here, and I'm guessing it's going to be a really quick team against the veteran team. And can you handle it? Can you handle the literal pressure, the full court pressure, defensive pressure, to the degree where you can get off some decent shooting opportunities? Can you make the Ole Miss, because their perimeter shooting is not good. It's under 30%, but they're pretty good inside.
Yeah.
So
it'll be fun on Friday, and then on Thursday the state. Well, let's talk about the tournament first for the men on the men's side. Kind of went the way it was, with state kind of, I guess they started slow their first game, but finished that game strong, and then obviously played really well against USD and handled them easily. And then the championship game was a really good game. North Dakota State started a little slow, but again, that's credit to South Dakota State and things like that. But both teams really played well the last 10 minutes of that game, and that was a fun game to watch.
That was a fun game to watch. I watched that one for sure, the second half. And I mean, it's not easy being good, I was thinking about that with either of those games, the USD and then the South Dakota State, and especially the South Dakota State, where they didn't know if they were going to be able to get in after that great season they had. They had no assurance they were going to get in if they didn't win that game with all their fans there. And those are advantages, but you got to handle it. You got to use those things. You got to be graceful about how you interpret a crazy crowd and those sorts of things. And they did it well enough to win that game. And any way you win that game, given the circumstances, in my mind, is very significant.
Absolutely. When you're the favorite team, it's tough to win a basketball game. It's tough if you're playing the 8th seed. There's a lot of talent on the court when you get to that level, and so just excited for the men to, and then they come off with a 13 seed, I believe.
And this definitely could have been better there.
Yeah,
they had every right to expect a little bit better, but again, this will go to a matchup, which I don't have any insight into that matchup, but I think that's the bigger deal rather than if they're an 11, 12, 13.
Yeah, and my thought on that, and I don't know Providence that well either, but if you're a 13 seed playing a 4 seed and it's not Power 5, I think right away mentally that might give you a little breath of okay, this is okay. Now that being said, I hope they, obviously Providence is really good, so I hope they're not shocked when they get out there and Providence is really good and really athletic. Just because it's not.
Well, nobody can shoot like SDSU, pretty much literally. And if they have a decent game, if they represent their regular season from the perimeter, they get every, chance in the world to win that game.
Absolutely. And I've heard, listening to some of the ESPN radio and stuff like that, there's a lot of the experts are, thinking that's a possibility that State could win that game. And so it'll be fun. That's on Thursday, I think. You got to taking Thursday and Friday off.
I'm a working man.
Oh yeah, just
St. Patrick's Day. I'm working.
Yeah. Not watching basketball. Just
not drinking
green beer. Just working.
Yeah,
that's all you work.
Yeah.
So, but exciting time in South Dakota for basketball. Obviously, wrestling got over a couple weeks ago, and just a lot to celebrate with State U and all these teams that are winning games in tournaments and getting to tournaments and things like that. So, it'll be fun to see how this weekend shakes up with not only the boys tournament, but the NCAA tournament with those two universities that we have right here.
Yeah, you got local stuff, and then you have national stuff with local participants in it, which is not a dynamic that's been existed in this state for forever. Whatever, last 15 years or so that you've had both those things, and it would be great if you could hang in there a little bit with the SDCU or USD. If you could win a game and keep going here, that'd be great stuff.
Yeah, I will say this. I think the worst part about the seed that State got is not that they're the 13 seed, it's that they have to go to Buffalo. And I heard that there's snow coming there,
Really?
Which I'm sure they've got a lot already, but and at least USD gets to go to Waco, so they get to go to some warmer. But
yeah. I don't know. I've been to upstate a couple different times.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's great.
It's beautiful, but
yeah,
it could be buried in.
I guess if you're going there, you're a college basketball player thinking it's not going to be that big a deal to not worry about whether we get some raise or not.
Exactly. They're going business trip, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, all right. So next week we'll be at Boss's Pizza. and we'll have a guest. We're still working on a guest, but there's so much more that we could talk about and go in depth, but we just wanted to jump on here quick and just kind of give a heads up to what's going on. And we thank Boss's Pizza for sponsoring. That's pretty cool, and we look forward to being there next Monday. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready.
What pizza did we have last? That was good.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot
Yeah.
going on with it.
Yeah, that was very
Yeah.
good. So we might have to try that one again, or try one of their other specialties.
Jeremy's he's a chemist, man. He's got a
Yes.
lot of stuff going on there with those people.
Now I'm getting hungry thinking about it.
All
So,
right.
all right. So thanks everybody for watching, and I'm gonna head over to the Rec Center here to celebrate the O'Gorman Lady Knights championship. And Mick, you have a great night, and we will see you next Monday.
Looking forward to it, Tim.
All right. Thanks.